Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we have the F87 M2 behind us. You guys really enjoyed the content that we put out a couple of weeks ago, so we're following straight back on the heels of that with another video with the M2. And today we are going to be ticking off one of the boxes that I've been wanting to tick for a while, which is the bonnet. So from factory, the M2 bonnet is just simple, plain Jane, exactly the same as on every other 1 Series and 2 Series, which is fine if you're going to have a bit of a sleeper, but for this car, we want it to stand out a little bit. And so I thought, why not look at what we've got in our catalogue? When it comes to bonnets, it's really down to budget. We offer aluminium or carbon fibre bonnets. Today, we're going to be looking at the aluminium bonnets. These are a bit more cost effective, and to be honest with you, they give you the look that you want without spending 2-3 grand on the carbon fibre, especially if you're going to be painting it anyways. And one of the key things is that these aluminium bonnets are actually really light. They're only about 20-30% heavier than the carbon fibre variant. In front of me here, we've got the two styles that are our most popular styles. This is the GTS style, and this is kind of like an E92 power dome sort of styly. It's like the M4 GTS basically from the F82 era. Nice bonnet and probably the more popular style. And then this is the M2 CS style. So this is essentially exactly the same bonnet that come on the M2 CS in its sort of run out period. I'll be honest, this would be my preference, but we're going to compare them both today and I might change my mind and go for the GTS. So next steps, we're going to take off the stock bonnet, get that all off. We're going to show you how to install the new bonnet, and then we're going to head off to the paint shop. First things first, all we need to do is get the washer jets removed, which we're going to use a flathead to sort of pry them off. And then we've got 13mm bolts here. So I'm going to start by removing this one, then I'll slightly loosen this one, and then it will just be a case of pulling the bonnet off. So one thing to note, obviously with this bolt you have to completely remove it, but here at the top edge there's actually a little slot, so you don't have to fully remove this bolt, and that's going to make getting the bonnet on and off a lot easier. So getting the bonnet off now is a two-man job, so I've got a helpful assistant here, Thomas, who's going to help me get this off. There you go, that'll come out now. Cheers, Thomas.
You're welcome.
Sort that out in the edit. So now the bonnet's off, there's 4 things we've got to take off, which are these 2 things and then these 2 things, because they're going to be transferred over to the new bonnet. So these are essentially just like grommets that you can sort of spin. You can change the height of the bonnet to adjust the fitment, because what happens is with every single bonnet, where they're a large body panel, obviously you're going to get different sort of variations between them. So BMW designing these different grommets, I can't spin them so I've got gloves on at the minute, but you can spin them up and down and adjust the height of the bonnet where it reaches the bumper. Again, these are pretty similar, so you can take these trims off and then you can spin to make this lower or higher, and again that will adjust the top edge of this bonnet, the height of it. So now we're done with this bonnet, we're going to get this out of the way into the warehouse and into storage, and we can then have a little look at the new bonnet. So this is how yours will arrive when it gets delivered. It's worth noting as well, like we ship these worldwide. When you add them to your cart, you might not get quoted a shipping price. That's just because of the size of them. So our team will give you like a custom quote basically based on where you are. But yeah, wherever you are, we can ship these, which is great. Cool, so that is the CS bonnet unpacked. And now you can see the 2 side by side. You can actually get a bit of an idea of the sort of different design philosophies they take. This is definitely a bit more like sharper, angular, kind of suits the actual design of the bonnet as well. And then this is more like sort of classic BMW, like I said, E92 GTS, sort of M4 GTS, that sort of style. So other things to note, when you get your bonnet, there are going to be imperfections in the paintwork. It's just kind of part of mass producing these products, that they don't come out the same way like an OEM panel would. For example here, you've got a bit of scarring in the paint. I've literally just unpacked this. Down on these edges here, you've got sort of some scratches. Very often these panels will come with really small little dents in them as well, which is just from the shipping process. It's really impossible for us to avoid it. So when you get a quote for painting on one of these bonnets from like a local paint shop, or if you have it painted by us, we include that in the price, but it's definitely worth considering that when you're talking to a paint shop about getting these painted. Same again on this side for the GTS, just along these edges here. A lot of this is going to sort of need refinishing when you go to paint it, so you always keep that in mind when you're getting your bonnets painted. Some of you guys will also be buying these to wrap them rather than paint, which is totally fine. This paint and material takes quite well to wrap. The only thing is you will need to sand and refinish the bonnet before you wrap over it, so just keep that in mind.
So Jack, what one are we going to go for? The GTS or the CS? I'd probably go for the GTS if it was on mine.
Yeah, to be fair, I do see the appeal. There's a Long Beach Blue one that you shot in Wales, amazing, and it looked unbelievable. But I am like OEM sort of guy. I mean, look, come on, man. I've still got my stock style mirrors on, so I'm going to go for the CS. That feels like an OEM Plus mod for me, so let's get that on the car.
Come on then.
So we've got the CS bonnet now on the trestle ready to go. This will be delivered with some wooden sort of like chocks here, and that's just to protect pointy edge bits here. That's another thing to talk about actually. In shipping, it's really common for this little area here to get like bent and stuff like that. We genuinely cannot avoid it. The amount of packaging we put on these is ridiculous, but it's just part of that process. So just keep that in mind. You might have to sort of refinish or sort of prep that before you paint it as well. And one of the things we're going to talk about now is that when this bonnet arrives, before you paint it, please do a test fit on the car if you can. This isn't a simple one-day process. It is very, very much worth investing the time, getting the car like this in a shop, taking the stock bonnet off, prep fitting one of these before you paint it, and then go, because otherwise, if you don't do that, it can sometimes get a little bit complicated with returns, exchanges, and all that sort of stuff. So just keep that in mind. So as I spoke about earlier, these brackets here, this one is obviously a full bracket, but this has an actual slot in the top. And that's going to make it a lot easier when we're going to put the bonnet on. So what we're going to do is just put the top bolt in first, and that's going to allow us to slot the bonnet in place, and then we can affix it with the bottom one after. Spin this nut on here, and that means now that at least whatever happens, the sort of bonnet's in place. So now this bolt's in place and this bolt's here. As you can see from the bracket, you can see where the paint is sort of like not there, basically. And that's a really good place to start, because that's going to give you at least somewhere to begin getting this bonnet in place. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to just lift this up, and I'm going to tighten this bolt just over that place there. It doesn't need to be super tight to begin with. We're just going to get it sort of roughly there, because we're going to be undoing these quite a bit just to get the fitment as it needs to be. So that's all bolted in now. And get a rough idea of fitment. Obviously this is going to be going to the paint shop now to get fitted, but gives you a rough idea if that was clamped down. There's your edges. So this here, we might pull the bumper out a little bit here to make this right. The actual bonnet could probably come back. You've got quite a big gap here, so we can pull that back as well and get that fitment nice there, and that'll probably fix this area. Around this side, it's pretty similar really. Actually, this edge is a little bit out, so we'll probably be able to push the bonnet in over this way. So there's a lot of little adjustments to be done, and that's one of the things with these bonnets. They do take that time to finesse, but once they're on, they look perfect. So next thing for us now, we're going to get the washer jets in place, we're going to get these clamps in place, and then we're going to take the car to the paint shop. So we need to get the clamps in a bit tighter than what they are right now, but for the purpose of what we're doing, this is just going to get to the paint shop. We'll get that all sorted later on. Right, we're down at Jones Body and Paintwork. Got my main man Luke here. He's sort of our approved AUTOID body shop, and today we're just going to be going through what are the imperfections I might have missed on the bonnet, and then talk a little bit about how we're going to get the fitment just right, and then I'm going to hand the keys over to Luke, and he's going to actually get this bonnet on the car painted and all good to go. So let's start with the actual bonnet as it stands. Imperfections wise, what do we think?
It's not too bad actually. This one's not in the worst of conditions. Obviously you've got a few little imperfections like the transporting marks, like a few little dents here and there, which we're going to use a bit of a panel beating, a little bit of filler maybe just to get them perfect.
Yep.
You do also get quite often with the aftermarket parts is you get ripples around the edges where they either hand panel beat them, where they put the skins around the frames, or sometimes in the presses they can be a little bit more aggressive compared to the main dealers who have like £1 million presses that press out
exactly
once.
That. So yeah. It's all relative.
Yeah, you're always going to get a little bit of a difference to like OEM parts, but this one's actually pretty good condition. Just a few little bits that we need to sort out.
And then on this edge here, this is a common thing that we get asked when we're chatting with customers. They're like, oh, it's not matching up on this side. Yeah. This is pretty normal, isn't it, when you put it straight on?
Yeah, so these ones are a bit tricky. Like, you always have an issue around this area. The best thing to do when we fit them is to get them as an even as possible, sort of thing. So we'll get it lined up with the backs of the wings first, so then this gap's nice, and then we can adjust the wings to that. So once the bonnet's in as good a position it can be, we'll adjust the wings, adjust the bumper.
Yep.
Like, because you want to go to the bonnet first and then adjust the wings how they need to adjust.
Yeah.
And then
for our American audience, wings are fenders.
Yeah.
So obviously this is going paint match to the mineral grey of the car. We've also got the centre trim here, which goes like so. Now, majority of people leave this just plastic as it is because it's fine as it is, but I'm kind of one for details, and I want to match in the gloss black, so Luke's going to gloss black that out as well. So just a nice little touch there.
Yep.
One other thing, just to note, this car has PPF on it. It's had PPF on it probably for the last 10, 15,000 miles or so, and there's a good chance that this PPF is slightly more like yellow than the actual paint below it. So what Luke's going to do is actually probably paint match to an area of the car that's the actual paint, so maybe a door or I don't know.
Yeah, we'll usually take the flap off. We'll check the flap to the front end, because sometimes you could have a rear end that's been painted and not matched to the front and it's blended in.
Yeah.
So we'll check the flap to the front end, see how close it is. But yeah, PPF does yellow over time. You'll see it quite often on the Porsches, like the white Porsches, and even the Teslas as well. Yeah. You'll see the PPFs on the quarters that go yellow. So if you've had it PPF'd, you've got to bear in mind there's going to be a colour mismatch.
Got to keep that in mind.
But we'll get it as close as we can. We'll do some test cards on this, because we've got the car in. We can see how close we can get it, and we can go from there.
Nice one. Let's do it. Right, so the fitment is basically there with the bonnet now. We're going to leave the car with Luke in his capable hands. You're going to join us in a couple of seconds' time, a few days later, to see how this looks painted on the car. The car is done, and I am absolutely over the moon with how this looks. I mean, yeah, it does the talking. It looks insane. It's actually completely transformed the front end of the car, completely, and it suits it. Like in this colour, absolutely 10 out of 10. Anyway, enough of me talking. Luke, can you give us a bit of a run through on what you've done, maybe the kind of like fitting process, and maybe just talk a little bit about the painting and process, etc.
Yeah, sure. So how we've done it is, when you first get the bonnet, we've had to put it on. You brought it to us on, but we just needed to adjust it first, get it as close as we can to OEM. There's obviously, you've got to do a fair amount of tweaking. It took me and my panel beater probably best part of an hour just tweaking it, getting it aligned to the wings before. And then once you've got the wings aligned, then you can bring your bumper in or out, depending on how big you want the gap at the front. Then once that's done, and you check your paint colour, so we had the rear flat matched, we checked it to the front. This one's got PPF on it, so it makes it a little bit harder for the match to look 100%.
Yeah. I think that, just to interrupt you there, the paint match here and here is just slightly off because of the PPF. The PPF's gone a bit yellow, but obviously we've matched the bonnet to the car, so in an ideal situation,
it looks bang on camera.
Yeah. Oh, does it really?
It looks bang on camera.
In an ideal world, I should have took the PPF off, but
in an ideal world, we would have blended the whole thing as well.
Exactly that. But
it's as close as you can get without going overboard. Basically.
For the normal person, this looks absolutely 10 out of 10. And one of the things to talk about as well was just these shut lines are the same as what the bonnet was before. There's no compromise there. Which is often an issue of
the good thing about BMWs is you do have a fair amount of adjustment. So if your bonnet or wings high or low, you can.
Should I pop the bonnet so I can show you?
Yeah. So on these ones, you have actually got adjustment on the frames as well as the bolts, so you can see how far it's come out.
Oh yeah.
Where we've adjusted the wing there, and then the bonnet, the frame where it's actually bolted to the inner wing, the inner flitch, you can actually bring that whole wing up and down.
Wow, okay.
To match the bonnet sort of thing. So there's a lot of adjustment on these BMs. You take these covers off here, then you've got more bolts at the front. So you can adjust the wings in or out and a little bit of up and down. But yeah, most body shops, if you're buying one of the bonnets and you're getting it painted by a body shop, most body shops would be fully able to adjust it and get it fitted right first. It's rule number one, when you get aftermarket parts, you need to fit them first. Get them as close as you can before, because then you can do all your tweaking before you paint it. Worst thing to do is paint the bonnet. Yeah, paint the bonnet and then try and fit it afterwards, because there's no, you're adjusting while it's finished.
And also, worst case scenario, let's just say there was an issue or whatever, it's too late then to fix it.
Exactly. While I'm under here and I see this, a good thing to do if no one knows about fitting these bonnets is to count the amount of turns that you're taking it out of your old bonnet, because it's all done by, that's how you bring the bonnet up and down on the front. Right. So when you brought it to me, I don't know if it's on the camera, you'll see that the bonnet looked like it was open.
I did. That's
because you probably put them in a couple of turns sort of thing, but you just need to count those turns. It will give you an idea, and then you can bring it up or down. So whereas this will go, I can show you actually, makes it easier. So if you go that way, then you're tightening it and lowering the bonnet. If you're going that way, then you're bringing it down and then opening the bonnet gap sort of thing.
Here, these normally come like in a raw plastic finish, but we've gone and sort of spec'd to get them in gloss black.
Yes.
There is an additional charge if you want to get that done, so just keep that in mind. Yeah, thanks for watching. Also, next time he's going to have a burger in his mouth.
Yes, next time burger.
But yeah, guys, thank you for watching the video. Please make sure you subscribe and drop us a comment below on what you think of the M2 and what we should be doing next to this car. Goodbye.